The clock is ticking. It is Friday, June 19, 2026. I am your anchor, Alistair, and I am currently tracking the latest installment of our managed decline. Today, the headlines are filled with breakthroughs that will never arrive and disasters that have already occurred. We have fusion startups soaking up $7 billion while a seabird in Western Australia tests positive for the H5N1 virus. One of these things promises us a clean, infinite future. The other promises us a very messy, finite end. The press release for the fusion firm was optimistic. The scientific report for the bird flu was certain. We are currently living in the gap between those two documents. The summit for the fusion investment will be held in a climate-controlled room. The containment strategy for the avian flu will be held in a field. Nobody seems to notice the difference. Welcome to the show.
Alistair, the incentives here are not complicated. You look at the $7 billion poured into fusion and you see a scientific endeavor. I see a high-stakes game of musical chairs played by venture capitalists who need a narrative to justify their burn rates. The reality is that these startups are selling a dream of infinite energy to people who are terrified of a finite balance sheet. It is a classic Series B pivot where the product is actually just hope, and the market is desperate enough to buy it at scale. If they actually sold the physics, the valuation would be irrelevant because money itself would lose its utility. But they won't. They will just keep raising until the next shiny object arrives. It is a beautiful mechanism for wealth transfer. The efficiency of this grift is honestly staggering to behold. It tracks perfectly.
Ronald, I am standing near the tracks in Bedford. The air here smells like ozone and scorched rubber. You talk about wealth transfer and Series B funding, but I am looking at a carriage that looks like a crumpled soda can. A passenger told me it felt like a bomb went off. I want to be really clear, this was not a market inefficiency or a failed product launch. This was a metal tube failing the people inside it. The official statement from the Transit Authority described this as an operational irregularity. I counted 3 separate emergency crews struggling to pry the doors open while the passengers were screaming. They used the word irregularity to sanitize the fact that someone forgot to check the bolts. The bolts do not care about your startup metrics or your burn rate. They just sheared off. People are bleeding.
Victoria, your report on the physical reality of the situation is noted. Meanwhile, in the world of high-stakes trade, the US government is currently engaged in a staring contest with ASML regarding chip manufacturing tools in China. The US claims the machines are there. ASML claims they are not. The commercial logic dictates that ASML would never risk its export license for a single customer. The political logic dictates that the US must find a reason to block the technology regardless of the truth. The outcome is a series of conflicting press releases that satisfy nobody. ASML is a company that builds the literal foundation of modern silicon, yet it is currently acting like a teenager caught smoking behind the school bleachers. The denial was professional. The technical reality of the equipment is irrelevant to the political theater. Truth is now an optional component.
Alistair, you are missing the play. ASML is not acting like a teenager. They are optimizing for a regulatory environment that changes faster than their R&D cycle. If they admit the machines are in China, they lose the US market. If they deny it, they keep the revenue and hope the auditors are too slow to catch up. It is just basic risk management at scale. You see a loss of truth, I see a perfectly rational response to an irrational trade war. These incentives are designed to make companies lie. If the incentives demand dishonesty, the company will deliver dishonesty with a quarterly smile. Victoria finds this cold. Victoria is right to find this cold. But being cold does not make the market function any differently. The system is operating exactly as designed. The lie is a feature, not a bug.
Tropical storm activity increasing. Sustained winds reaching 85 miles per hour. Probability of structural failure in coastal zones, 74%. Atmospheric pressure dropping rapidly. Surface temperatures in the Gulf rising. Probability of flash flooding in low-lying areas, 92%. Infrastructure degradation accelerating. Emergency response times exceeding target thresholds. Probability of localized power grid collapse, 89%. Meteorological models indicate a pattern of instability. Data suggests traditional containment strategies are insufficient. The storm will reach the shoreline by dawn. Residents are advised to prepare for significant disruption. There is no predictive model for a world that refuses to adapt to its own weather. Maintain vigilance. Ensure your personal survival protocols are updated to current risk levels. The environment is shifting. Stability is no longer a guaranteed metric. Proceed with extreme caution. Expect continuous atmospheric fluctuations until further notice.
Alistair, I have been looking into the startup that bought the Beats Studio Buds vulnerability. It is fascinating. They disclosed the flaw 12 months ago, yet it sat in a repository while manufacturers ignored it. I found the original developer. They were not a corporate entity. They were a student living in a basement in Berlin. They tried to tell the parent companies, and they were ignored because the patch would have cost pennies per unit, and those pennies were deemed too expensive for the quarterly margins. I want to be really clear, this was not a bug. This was a business decision. They decided that letting your microphone potentially record your conversations was a cheaper outcome than fixing the hardware. The student's email is sitting in a spam folder. The executives are currently discussing their next excellent fiscal year.
Victoria, you are describing the standard life cycle of technical debt. It is not malicious, it is just math. If the cost of the recall is greater than the cost of the potential liability payout, the company will always choose the payout. It is a simple calculation of risk-weighted outcomes. The student in Berlin is a variable that the company decided was not worth the overhead. You look at this and see a moral failure. I look at it and see a company being efficient with their capital. The fact that the hardware is compromised is just a byproduct of that efficiency. You are shocked that they prioritized money over privacy. I am shocked that you expected them to do anything else. If they acted otherwise, they would be failing their shareholders. The incentives here are brutal, but they are consistently applied.
Ronald, I think we have established that the market is a heartless machine. But let us discuss the news from Brazil. The Supreme Court has sentenced Eduardo Bolsonaro to 4 years for courting U.S. interference in his father's coup trial. He is currently residing in the United States. The surreal nature of a man being sentenced in absentia for a crime committed to subvert his own nation's legal system while residing in the host country of his co-conspirators is, quite frankly, exquisite. The rhetoric used by his supporters is that this is a political persecution. The rhetoric used by the court is that this is a defense of democracy. I have been counting the times democracy has been defended this year. It is usually preceded by a total collapse of the institutions doing the defending. The irony is completely buried.
Alistair, I am standing in a park near the court proceedings. There are people here holding signs about freedom. They are the same people who were cheering when the trial was delayed last month. I spoke to a woman who told me that the law is just a suggestion if you have the right friends in the right time zones. She is not wrong. I want to be really clear. The legal system in Brazil is currently acting as a slow-motion wrecking ball against the very people who built it. The Eduardo Bolsonaro case is not a trial. It is a theatrical performance for an audience that stopped believing in the script years ago. There is a stray dog chewing on a discarded political flyer near my feet. The flyer is for the candidate who lost the election last time. Nobody is watching.
Victoria, the incentives are the same everywhere. Power is just a resource that needs to be hedged against institutional risk. Bolsonaro's son is just a bad trader who got caught holding the wrong bag at the wrong time. He thought he could outmaneuver the judiciary by outsourcing his legal strategy to a foreign power. That is a classic mistake. You never trust a third-party vendor with your existential legal exposure. It is a failure of due diligence on his part. The fact that he is in the US is irrelevant. He is just another asset being depreciated by his own poor decision-making. You see the tragedy of a nation. I see a failed transaction that resulted in a total loss of equity. It is a very expensive way to learn about the limits of geopolitical influence. Yeah.
Ronald, your assessment of the situation as a failed transaction is, as always, technically flawless and morally vacant. I find myself wondering if there is any corner of this planet that has not been converted into a series of debits and credits. The Titan submersible report, which we covered extensively in previous cycles, is back in the headlines. The report confirms that the firm was run on groupthink and confirmation bias. It failed to understand the risks of its own design. It was a business that treated physics as a negotiable contract. It lost. Now, we have an entire global infrastructure of similar firms, similar designs, and similar biases. They are all operating at depths where they cannot be recovered. We are all on the Titan now. The only difference is that we have not yet realized we are diving.
I am thinking tonight of a man in Western Australia. He lives near Cape Le Grand. He spends his mornings walking the shoreline, collecting things the tide brings in. He found a brown skua yesterday. He did not know it was the first carrier of a deadly strain. He simply saw a sick bird, picked it up, and took it to the local park authorities to ask for help. He did not ask for recognition. He did not ask for a headline. He simply wanted to be useful to a living thing. That man's name is not in the official briefing documents. His hands are currently being washed in a sterile sink. He is waiting to hear if he is sick. He is a person. He is not a variable. He is not a risk. He is simply waiting for a truth that nobody else has the courage to name.